What if one dog could teach a child to never give up? Maya the Malamute, a spark of courage, tells the true story of Maya, the smallest of 10 puppies. The runt of the litter, she barely survived. Then, at just 9 weeks old, she was struck with a life-threatening illness. But Maya's spark of courage never faded. Today, Maya is the only certified therapy dog visiting children every week at the U of I's Stead Family Children's Hospital, the same kids we honor with the Hawkeye Wave. When Maya enters a hospital room, faces light up. And for a moment, children facing their toughest battles rediscover hope. This book shares her story, inspiring Iowa's kids to find their own courage. Every purchase or donation supports Maya's Spark of Courage Foundation, which provides these books and others like them to children during hospital visits completely free of charge. A gift of hope they can take home. Learn more or order your copy at mayathemalamute.com. Together, we can help even more Iowa kids find their spark of courage. Maya the Malamute, Jeff Knight, and that great foundation doing great things in Iowa City at the Stead Family Children's Hospital and inspiring kids everywhere. So definitely check out that website, mayathemalamute.com. Here's a guy who's about to inspire some people. Coach Don Patterson's with us to inspire us for the next hour here. Special midweek edition, Don.
Yeah.
Isn't this great?
Long time no see.
This is midweek, Don. This is we're wearing the green. I don't know what that means because neither of the teams that are going to play Saturday are green. So I guess it's a neutral color.
Well, the women in Canada, when are you going to wear red?
Yeah, don't wear red. About half the opponents or more. Actually, what 3/4 of Iowa's opponents probably are red, right? If we count those up, Nebraska, Rutgers, Indiana, Iowa State, go down the line, UMass. So anyways, we're here talking about Indiana, man. This is a weird situation. I didn't expect us to be in a place preseason, Don, where this game feels so just like it does. I mean, there's so much hype with this game, and we knew it was going to be a difficult game. This is an Indiana team coming off a playoff appearance last year. But after what Indiana did last week to Illinois, and I've got thoughts on that. If people missed my preview, you can check it out. I'll reiterate some of those in the next hour. But, Don, this matchup is being touted as one of the big ones, not just in the country, but on the Big Ten scale throughout the year ahead. This is a big one for both teams. If Iowa wants any chance to retain really any chance of making the playoff as a late flyer, you got to win it. And Indiana has to prove it on the road, and can, they're going to have a chance to lose some too because they play some powers later on this year as well.
All true.
So let's start with what I said in my preview, Don. I mean, if people missed it, again, you can go back and listen to it. I want to kind of give people an idea of where I stand on this game. And I've been getting my share of criticism since I was on our show with Mark Rogers yesterday, and since I made comments that were released last night here on the channel. I guess long story short, I'm not downplaying the difficulty of this game. I'm not. But I do think people are overreacting. And I gave a nice Don Patterism. That's what I'm going to call it, a Don Patterism.
I know what you're going to say.
I put it as the title of the video last night. I said, warning, it's okay to react, just don't overreact.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of people, including people who are putting money on this game, have overreacted. And I want to reiterate exactly what I said last night. I've had some Indiana fans come after me in the last 24 hours. Old Dominion's a good team. If you're sitting here touting Old Dominion as a good win, that means you don't have very many good wins. All right. They have one impressive win. Not saying it was very impressive. Nobody's debating that. But the caveats here are it was not against a perennial power. That's A. It was at home under the lights. That's B. One thing I didn't mention in the game preview that is a factor. Brett Bielema brought it up post-game. Not making excuses, just laying out the facts. They were down 6 of their top 7 defensive backs. Some of those guys were lost prior to the game. Some of them were lost during the game. Not all due to injury. One was due to targeting. So that's a factor. The other factor here is we look at 63-10. We think they're 53 points better than the Illini. They're not 53 points better than the Illini. And if you believe that, you've been drinking the red Kool-Aid since Saturday because that's absurd. If those two teams played today on a neutral field, Vegas would probably make it maybe a 6 to 7 point. Well, now that Indiana was, I think, a 7-point favorite this week against Iowa, maybe they'd be closer to an 8-point favorite on a neutral field against the Illini tomorrow. Games sometimes get out of hand, Don. You know things can snowball. I ran through some observations that I made. I thought Illinois played horribly as it relates to just tackling discipline. Really poor effort in the open field. plenty of yards after contact, yards after catch. I thought Luke Altmaier got rattled. That happens easily when you're on the road and you get behind early. You give up a special teams touchdown. Credit to Indiana. Indiana had 10 men on the field. I made a mistake yesterday. I said Illinois was the team with 10 men on the field. I was just quoting Brett Bielema, and he didn't say stipulate. I assumed it was Illinois that had 10 men on the field because they're the ones that got the punt blocked. But apparently Indiana had 10 guys in the field, kind of confused Illinois, and then they gave up the punt block return for a touchdown. I said the one thing that really scared me, if there's anything that scares me about this game, and nothing really scares me about it, but it's going to rattle some people. But the one thing that really made me nervous, Don, was when I looked at the box score and I saw a 53-point win, and Illinois didn't get killed on turnovers, and they didn't get killed on penalties. Like, they lost by 53, and they only turned the ball over one time and had 4 penalties. So it's not like it just became a turnover fest and you got a bunch of pick sixes. Yes, he had the special teams touchdown,
which is the equivalent of a turnover.
Sure, yeah, it's the equivalent of a turnover. It's not doesn't count as such on the box score, but absolutely. And I will say this too. One thing that kind of annoyed me, fresh after that Indiana win over Illinois, was I had people asking me, "Wow, if Iowa struggled to guard Rutgers over the top, what are they going to do against this prolific Indiana offense?" And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I mean, I watched the game back. I watched Indiana, Illinois. Don, they weren't throwing over the top. No, I'm not saying they can't. They may go out there and do that against Iowa. It appears to be Iowa's weakness. You attack the weak corner. Signetti's known for being a schematics guy who's probably going to, without question, go after Iowa's weak point on that side of the ball. But they did not throw the ball over the top a ton against Illinois. Put this in perspective. They had 2 super explosive plays through the air, Indiana did. One of those was on a tight end screen. Right. It was not thrown over the top. It was on a tight end screen. So I'm saying this not because I'm not doubting Indiana's ability to beat good teams. That was a really impressive win. But I guess this is the narrative I'm running with at this point, because I feel it's sort of absurd that people on the Indiana side are so darn confident that not only is this game going to be an Indiana win, that they're just going to walk all over Iowa. Now, some Indiana fans aren't saying that, but there's a lot of fans that are like, "You're next." You know, like, I don't get that narrative. And I also don't get the narrative of Iowa fans. I get they're frustrated. They've been frustrated with the lack of success against top 25 teams in the last 5 years. But, Don, it's still Kinnick. It's going to be packed. It's going to be raucous. The north end zone's a factor. I am honestly surprised Indiana opened as whatever they were, a 5, 6, 7-point favorite, somewhere in there. Based on what I was told, I don't follow these things closely enough. Iowa initially opened as like a 2-point favorite or something, and then the sports book closed and it was reopened as a 7-point spread. I don't know how that works. I'm not a betting guy. But, Don, you've heard me talk about a lot. What of what I just said is accurate? What is what I just said not accurate? And where do you agree? Where do you disagree?
Well, let me begin, Corey, by touching on the analytics from the game. As you know, since the weekend, I've looked at all the Big Ten games that were played last weekend. And, of course, I couldn't help but notice what happened in the Illinois-Indiana game. If you're going to be discouraged about our chances, you can listen to this. 25 parameters in the game. Indiana won all 25 of them. Now, in 10 years of doing analytics, I don't recall a single game in 10 years where one team won 25, the other team won none. I've seen some 21-0 or 22-0, with 3 or 4 ties. I've seen that. I can't remember 25-0. So in that regard, it was an absolute butt kicking. It was. But having said all that, I think you need to realize Illinois was in a desperate situation in the back end, even before the game, and it got more desperate during the game, because as you know, one of their best players got eliminated on a targeting call. And you might remember a touchdown before the half. It was ridiculously easy. It was 3rd and long in the red zone. And I don't know who number 20 is. He remained nameless, but you could tell he didn't know what he was doing. He's defending the outside receiver, and he's got a cushion probably of 7, 8, 9 yards down on the 10-yard line. I think it was an 11-yard completion. The bottom line, Surratt ran the end zone, nodded inside, broke outside, and he's wide open. I could have played it better than that number 20 did. And I'm pretty sure I'd have been beaten also, but not as bad as he was.
And for the record, you played DB at Army, right?
I did. Yes. So for those fans that want to think gloom and doom, how's that for gloom and doom? They won 25 out of 25 parameters against Illinois. Now can I go to the other extreme?
Yes.
And address those fans that choose to think like you are, that they're good, but they're not nearly unbeatable. Let me take you back in time and just ask it this way. For those that think this is an impossible game to win, history says otherwise. Let me tell you why. You got to go back 8 years. And I know you're going to remember this first game. You remember both of them, Corey, but some of our listeners don't. So let me touch on it. November 4th, 2017, one of my proudest days ever as a former Iowa coach in Kinnick, number 5 Ohio State in town, Iowa 55, number 5 Ohio State 24. 55-24. Man, what a great feeling. Now let's go ahead and go forward a week. What do you think happened the next weekend, Corey? You know what happened, but some of our listeners do not. 1 week later, we go to Camp Randall. The final score is 38-14, but the game wasn't nearly that close.
Can I ask you real quick before you continue? Did you listen to my preview?
No, did you cover some of this?
Yeah, I talked about it. I talked about exactly what you're saying. Go ahead. We think alike here, Don. That's good.
As our listeners know, maybe from hearing you before, Josh Jackson had 2 pick sixes. That's unusual. That's how we got our 14 points. Here's the rest of the story. I bet you didn't mention this one. In the middle of the third quarter, we had 14 points thanks to Josh Jackson. Here's the bad news. We also had 14 yards of total offense halfway through the third quarter.
So what's crazy about that, let me just add this real quick, because I talked about it yesterday. I mean, I have it right here in my notes, Don. Remember Iowa 2017 versus Ohio State at Whiskey. So Ohio State, again, you blow them out by 30, then you can't do anything the next week. So those extremes happen. Indiana couldn't be stopped last week. Not saying it couldn't happen, but ironic that we're talking about going on the road at one of the toughest places to play in the Big Ten and one of the toughest defenses traditionally in the Big Ten. The other part of that story you're leaving out, Don, is let's not forget prior to that Iowa-Ohio State game, Ohio State had just come off a top 10 victory over Penn State the week prior. And then the week after losing to Iowa by all those points, they beat number 15 Michigan State by 45.
Right.
Week to week. I mean, that's the conference. Even great teams. That was a really, really, really good team in Ohio State.
Let me flash back on Coach Frost's comments years ago. I will promise you this. After a big win, he would be unusually concerned about that next game. And here's how he explained it sometimes. He reminded us all, you know what, some of our players are still just teenagers. Some of them are in their early 20s. But I'll tell you what they're hearing when they go to class. They're hearing from their classmates, you guys are unbelievable. Nobody can beat you. And he said, I'll promise you, some of our guys are going to have a hard time fitting through the doorway because their heads are going to be too big to fit through there. And we got to bring them back to reality. You got to get yourself ready all over again. You have to play with that same enthusiasm. If you think you're just going to show up and win, you got another thing coming. Doesn't happen that way. You got to go out and earn it the next weekend too. Getting back to that Wisconsin game, here's another amazing parallel against Illinois last Saturday, Corey. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. IU was in the red zone 5 times. 5 touchdowns to show for those 5 trips in the red zone. Illinois never made it to the red zone. And amazingly enough, at Camp Randall 8 years ago, we never made it to the red zone either. So there are so many parallels. We were the ones that messed up in 2017. And the first part of that equation has gone in Indiana's favor. And now they're forced to go on the road 1 week later. And the question is, will they be able to do to us what they did to Illinois? There's no way I believe that'll happen. nor you, nor any of our Iowa fans. But here's the truth. The truth of it all: it's hard to be consistently good because it is a lot of ups and downs because it does relate to the other team. And oh, by the way, it relates to the other team's fan support also. Cam Randall had a wonderful home field advantage for the Badgers back in 17. We're going to have that same kind of advantage this Saturday against the Hoosiers.
Absolutely. And I see a couple of comments here in the chat. Just so people are aware, you can interact with us tonight, folks. 515-635-1601. Our call line is open. Also StreamYard. But I understand why people are not calling in by StreamYard because I have not put the chat or the link in the chat. So let's go ahead and do that. If you want to call in, I'm dropping the link right now in the live chat. I'll also throw it up in the description of this show. Apologize for being a few minutes behind, folks. It's probably why things are a little bit disjointed, at least at the beginning of our show. So bear with us. I'm catching up as we speak. Again, 515-635-1601 or click the StreamYard link in the description of this video. Okay, and one thing that was brought up to me was, this is the other part of this, and I see the comment here in the chat about the homerism. Yeah, I'm not like I don't like the arrogance from a fan. Like I can deal with it from Michigan fans because I think that some of that's just inbred in them, Don. Like it's just part of who they are. They are a blue blood. Michigan's a blue blood.
Right.
Nebraska, although they've been so irrelevant for so long, they've had national success over a number of years. Indiana's been a basketball school for a long time. So maybe they're turning the corner and football is now all of a sudden going to be this power. But I'm just surprised at how quickly I get it. Last year, they had a great record. They lost to a team that was really, really good. So we don't really know how good Indiana was because they didn't play a strong schedule and then lost to the one really good team they played. We just don't know. They didn't get another bowl game against a quality team. They got the playoff and they lost. But like this comment from James, I just please help me out here, Don. So James is not upset, but he's calling me out, or he's trying to call me out because I have made it a point of saying that Oregon had a good win week 1 over Montana State, but I'm not giving Indiana credit for beating Old Dominion. I don't care. Listen, first of all, two things. Everything is relative. Okay, Oregon has not played a difficult schedule. What I said yesterday, James, is their best win might be Montana State because Oklahoma State is horrible.
Right.
Oregon State is horrible. Their best win might be a 30-point, 40-point rout over a very good Montana State team that was picked to win their conference. I get that Indiana beat Old Dominion, but I'm not about to sit here for the next hour and debate somebody on Old Dominion that, yeah, they got to win over Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, I believe, just fired their head coach. Am I correct in saying that, Don?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, like they beat an ACC team. It's notable, but that's not a traditionally strong program. I don't think they've been in the FBS all that long. So, anyways, Don, your thoughts on comparing a win. Which is a better win? Let me ask you that. A home win against Montana State or a home win against Old Dominion?
That's a tough call. I don't know enough about Old Dominion in particular.
Yeah.
I know more about Montana State. And Montana State is a good FCS program. So.
And for the record, I would have said the same thing about Oregon. If we were analyzing Oregon, I would have still said prior to, I mean, they haven't played anybody. They're going into a huge matchup against Penn State this week. And although I'm pretty confident because Oregon's a traditional power, Indiana's not. I'm pretty confident in saying Oregon's really good. Okay. I think Indiana's might be really good, maybe even better than that. But Oregon, I have less doubt about Oregon because, I think they've played a tougher schedule marginally. Their schedule's not been difficult. Those teams are not good. Northwestern is not good.
Right.
Who else did Oregon play, Don? They've played a week. Who was their
can't recall
fifth opponent? But anyways, so yeah, I don't need to sit here and debate about. I can't believe so many people are throwing Old Dominion into the mix. I just cannot believe that really is where we're headed with this. Don, did you notice the missed tackles on Illinois' side? I didn't chart them, count them, but did you notice that on Saturday?
Yes. And again, just as a reminder to people, they were without some of their best players on defense, especially in the back end. There were some third-team players preseason that were out there playing down after down in the back end for Illinois. And I hope we don't have to play with our second-team players, much less our third-team players.
Do you anticipate Fernando Mendoza, Kurt Signetti, this coaching staff throwing the ball over the top since that worked so well for Rutgers last week in the first quarter?
I think they'll make an attempt, that's for sure. But that's really not their nature. In general, they're really good with pinpoint mid-level passes.
Yeah. So if that's their strength, is Iowa more or less built, equipped to deal with an offense like that, a pass offense like that, that's more of the mid-range pass offense versus a home run offense like Rutgers?
Well, I'll say it this way. Illinois, I didn't like their plan so much simply because they gave them way too many soft corners. They could throw underneath the corners without any problem. The RPO stuff went well for them. And the problem with being in some kind of high safety look, I'm talking about one high safety, a three deep, if you will, in the back end. If you hit that slant, there's only one guy that really has a good chance to make a more or less immediate tackle. That's the free safety. If he doesn't make it, then the race is on. Versus two safeties that are back there and sometimes playing fairly low even, but there's still two high safeties. Maybe they're stemming down on the snap because they are anticipating a chance to be a run support player. Two safeties, of course, you have one with inside leverage on the ball, one with outside leverage on the ball. Much more difficult. In other words, you can't just juke one guy and go for a long game. One of my concerns in the game, if they do hit some of those slants, our ability to tackle in the open field. You heard me say before about slants. The beauty of slants, sometimes you can catch the ball and run out with the ball. Sometimes a 10-yard throw is worth 30 because you made a guy miss and you were on the run when you caught it. So that's one of my concerns. But I do like the way, as you know, Xavier Wamba is playing the best football he's ever played for us. And I don't want to jinx him, but in general, he's been a very reliable open field tackler. And our DBs in general have been pretty darn good open field tacklers. You haven't seen that many missed tackles. And I realize we haven't played the world's toughest schedule yet either. But the bottom line, those two receivers we saw last weekend for Rutgers are very good players. Their quarterback is also a very good player. And here's the truth. The last 42 minutes of the game, they scored exactly 7 points. And part of that was on us for being able to stop them. Matter of fact, I'd say in general it was on us for being able to stop them because they were doing everything they could to somehow generate more than the points they had because they had a sneaking suspicion it wasn't going to be enough, and they were right.
All right, let's see. We got a couple of things here in the chat, and then we'll again, we've got the line open. I think I threw that in there. You might not see the link, but if you refresh the stream, you will. And I also threw it up in the live chat. But ZJ Wags, excuse me, he says, what adjustments does the Iowa passing defense make this game so they don't look like the defense in the first half against Rutgers last week? Kind of going, a good segue from what you just said, Don.
Well, we talked about what happened last weekend. In the first half, we tried to play a lot of our conventional football in the early stages, and we got just nitpicked to death, a lot of short throws. Good job of taking advantage of the soft spots in zone coverage, enough to make some first downs and move the ball. You recall the opening possession, of course, they went down the field, primarily with some short, quick passes, and those passes turned into first downs, and next thing you knew, they were in the end zone. But then as the game was adjusted, what did we do? We did a better job of disguising what we were going to do in the second half. We didn't necessarily give them a lot of off coverage in the second half. We played more line stunts up front in the second half. Sometimes we only rushed 4, but it wasn't simply rushing through the traditional lanes. Sometimes it was wave stunts or tackle defensive end stunts, whatever you want to call them. Sometimes maybe too, Corey, we bring someone that wasn't supposed to come, like a linebacker or maybe Cash, and we drop a defensive end that wasn't supposed to drop. We still only rushed 4, but we were still sound because we were still playing zone coverage. We had a lot of eyes on the football, and as you know, thankfully on the interception, when our defensive end got home, when Llewellyn got home, he didn't even knock the ball loose, but he got a piece of the throwing arm, and the ball fluttered out. And of course, in part because Rex Roth had his eyes on the quarterback, he was able to track the ball and make a nice play for our interception. So, yes, we can adjust. And I know that I have great faith in Phil. And as I said the other night, everyone should have a lot of faith in Phil Parker because it's not easy to defend someone that has the talent that Rutgers has at receiver. It's certainly not easy to defend someone like Indiana because that's another effective offense. But if there's anybody that can solve the puzzle, it's a guy like Phil Parker. So our fans should have faith in Phil because he's been working all week to try to figure out how to slow down Indiana. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it all plays out. Because I promise you, his plans are going to give them some problems maybe that they haven't really had to deal with just yet.
Let's go to our phone line. We've got Mr. Old Dominion. We got James with us. James, welcome. I think you need to start applying for jobs over there on the East Coast.
I'm just saying, if you're saying that Montana State's a good win for Oregon, when you said the other day, when you said that's a good team, you said that's a good team at least.
I said it was the best win on their schedule. It is.
Yeah, no, I'm not denying that, but I'm saying I feel like I'm not denying the Montana State portion, but I feel like the Old Dominion beating Virginia Tech. I don't know if Virginia Tech fired their coach, so that kind of hurts it a little bit in the fact that they fired their coach. And
I ask you, what does that prove? Since Indiana,
it doesn't prove anything. But
if Indiana, let me just ask the question: if Indiana is trying to be a national powerhouse, who cares if they beat a team at home that beat the worst team in the ACC? Who cares?
Yeah, but my thing is like you said yesterday, it's too early to tell. But also, if they make the college football playoffs obviously Memphis is probably the leader right now too, but as the non-group of 4 guy, right? Then then it matters a little bit more because they did make the playoffs, right? So in that aspect, I'm saying you didn't put enough credit into that point if you don't know how it's gonna work.
I just don't have any reason to believe this. They beat Virginia Tech. Who did they play? I don't even know who old. It's too early. That's kind of my whole premise for all of this, Don. Is it's too early with so much of it, and these people drawing these grandiose conclusions based on whether you want to include Old Dominion or not. A win over Old Dominion and a blowout victory over Illinois. I just think it's too early to draw these conclusions that we're just so convinced that Indiana is the new power in this conference.
No, I agree.
And the other thing we haven't mentioned, James, you heard me talk about it yesterday in the preview, but Don, Indiana's not played on the road this year. They haven't played on the road this year, and they have not played. Mendoza and Indiana have not played as one on the road this year. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to play badly, but I'm just saying those are variables that we have not seen tested yet.
Yeah, for sure. And I also feel like one more thing on the ODU before I get to my point. It's with the portal, you don't know how good some of those teams can be, because they have a lot of bounce backs from Power 5 schools that didn't get the money they wanted, so they're going to smaller schools, right? So you can never tell how good some of those non-Power 4 schools are, what I'm saying, when it comes to that aspect to a thing. So
let's see, they play Old Dominion will play Liberty and Coastal Carolina these next 2 games. So we'll get a feel for them. Yeah, I mean if they make the playoff, then I'll at least say that was a solid win. That doesn't mean they're a great team. Was Boise State a great team last year?
No. Good. I mean, they're probably better. They're better than most.
Just because you make the playoff as the group of 5, Don, you would probably agree with this. Just because you make the playoff, the committee has given an AQ or not an AQ, but I guess it is an automatic berth. It's not an AQ because it's not like you win a title. It's still subjective, but it's somebody from the non-Power 4 is going to get in. So yeah, maybe it's Old Dominion, but if they come to Kinnick on Saturday, James, and win by 25 or 30, then yeah, I'm going to be like, okay, this team's probably legit. But they haven't done that yet. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I agree with you. And also, like, the one thing that really scares me with this team, and I trust Phil, obviously, but like, I just don't know. It seems like me and my friends were talking about this. It seems like a lot of the teams we play have, and obviously Deshaun Lee's not the tallest corner, right? What is he, 5'10"?
yeah, I think he's
What is Jalen? What is Jalen? 5'10",
5'11",
11, right? So like, we don't have the best size on the edges, right?
TJ is very long, but
I mean, that's why I brought those other two guys and didn't bring up TJ's name. But I'm saying, like, on the opposite of, like, we don't have the size at some of the corner positions, right? So when you play a team like he brought up Iowa State and like even Rutgers. I know they don't have as tall receivers as Rutgers, right? But you play some of those teams with taller receivers. Sometimes I feel like it's tougher, right? Because I don't feel like Deshaun's as physical, right? And obviously at 5'10", it's hard to be physical sometimes with 6'5", 6'6" guys, right? But like, it's just easy to throw it up and catch it sometimes because you're way taller.
So
you know what I mean?
let me bring this up though, because you just kind of mentioned it, James. Don, let me throw this at you. What James is saying is valid. Iowa doesn't have a lot of size opposite TJ, whether they go with Deshaun Lee or Jalen Watson. Now, traditionally, you don't have to be long to be a great corner. Just see Desmond King, Jovan Johnson as examples. But to your point, length is sometimes a good thing when you're going up against bigger receivers. And by the way, go back and watch that 42-yard catch for Dayton Howard. He had a small DB on him, and that was a huge size advantage for Dayton Howard. Credit Lester, credit Gronowski, and credit Howard for taking advantage of it. But I want to bring up the Iowa State game because that was a game heading into it, and it was kind of overlooked because they lost, but they didn't lose because of the corners, Don.
Yeah.
Like Deshaun, TJ, they held their own in that game. Rocco Beck did not go off. They scored a touchdown on a short field after a pick from Gronowski. Typically, Iowa does struggle to guard Iowa State on the perimeter. So I guess I'm just thinking, based on that performance, we know they can be solid. And then obviously the last three quarters against Rutgers, and Rutgers is very one-dimensional. Iowa State is not. But it's not like Iowa's corners have been bad. And I would argue TJ could have been named player of the game on Saturday. I know that he was really good in a position that he could have been very vulnerable there since Deshaun gone so much.
Yeah. TJ's playing the best football he's played since he's been here too.
So what do you?
In my opinion, I heard Kirk say the same thing himself.
Yeah. What do you attribute the success against Iowa State guarding those receivers? If you're Iowa, why were they so successful in limiting what has typically been a difficult offense for Iowa to limit through the air?
Well, I think I know this about TJ, and I don't know about Deshaun quite as well, but TJ I know is very, very coachable. And that's a good thing because you learn from your mistakes and you play with more intelligence with each passing game, not to mention each passing year. So TJ just has a good idea of how to play now. He's only human. I'm not saying he'll never be beaten again. There's never been a DB that hadn't been beaten. But the challenge, of course, is to be able to beat him more than once. And a good corner, certainly, if he's beaten one time in a game, he's not likely to let it happen again. May not happen for several games. But they're not going to lose confidence in their abilities. That's my point. They're still going to contest the throws. They're going to play more intelligently than they were when they got beaten on a particular play. They're going to learn from their mistake, but they're still going to compete. They're not afraid to compete.
Yeah, and one thing.
James, go ahead.
Oh, my bad. I thought it said I was muted. Yes, they said you muted me, but you unmuted me. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I was just getting echo there, but no, you're unmuted. You're good.
You're good. One thing that I think this is more of and obviously our offense has to quick, but I think this is more of like, how can our defense hold up against their offense and the fact of the way they looked against Illinois? And I'm not saying that's the way their offense is completely, right? As you said, like, it's week by week basis, right? But like, how can they look in? How does the other side look? Because like, I felt like against Rutgers, they should have maybe tried to Jalen a little bit earlier, right? Like, I'm not saying Deshaun Lee was getting torched by any means.
He was getting picked on, but credit to those receivers, man. There were a couple of plays down where I thought Deshaun played pretty good coverage, and they just
they made great catches. They made great catches on a lot of them,
and it was precision accuracy. I mean, I've heard some Indiana fans this week, you're comparing Kelly McManus to Mendoza. And I'm like, Kelly McManus look at his numbers. numbers-wise, before last week, Don, Rutgers had played a very similar schedule to Indiana, and their numbers were very similar. And oh, by the way, Callie McManus was doing that without a run game.
Right.
So give the kids some credit. Like, I'm not saying Mendoza is not a better quarterback, but again, the numbers were very similar, and Callie McManus can spin it.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not one of those people where it's like, I think I kind of got, and obviously this was not the same game at all, right? But I had kind of PTSD to some of those like Anthony Mahungu games, those David Bell games at Purdue, right? And this is not even close to that, but like where they didn't take the corner out quick enough, they didn't try something different quick enough, right? You know what I mean? Like that kind of PTSD where it's like, you see them making great catches, yeah, but you don't know maybe if Jalen might play that differently to where they can't catch it as well. You know what I mean? In my head is how I'm thinking right now. Obviously, I'm not Phil, right? He is in that room every day, so he understands it more than me, but I've seen where DBs kind of get beat sometimes, and he does wait to pull the trigger, like the Anthony Mahungu game or the David Bell just cooking us game kind of. He waited to take guys out till it was too late. So we have seen that before, and it's kind of like does kind of bring back PTSD, if that makes sense, from those kind of situations. But
yeah, I mean, I totally get that. Don, do you have anything to say about the rotation at DB and how much do you expect? I mean, we did see Jalen get in there late for Deshaun. I went back and confirmed that because I didn't notice it in live game action because sometimes they run an extra corner onto the field. But it did appear that he was, they were subbing guys out there and giving Jalen an opportunity on that side of the field. Do we see that to start the game on Saturday?
I honestly don't know. I haven't even looked at a depth chart prior to the game, but it wouldn't shock me if we played a third corner. Let's face it, part of the developmental process is to bring along the twos so that you're not afraid to put them in the game. And you've always heard me say, Corey, I'd rather have a number 2 out there that's fresh than a number 1 who maybe is a little bit better, but he's also fatigued. He's been out there playing for quite a while. It's going to be a little on the warm side at 2:30 on Saturday. Wouldn't bother me if our third corner was in the game to give Deshaun a blow. That wouldn't bother me at all.
James H. says that this James is a closet ODU fan. So
no,
James,
not really. If I'm a closet anything, it's you and I just because of the way I live. But, in general, like, it's just like I watch a lot of football and I know that some Power 4 teams can be better than they look, right? Or they get good wins and they look better. But I was just saying, like, I agree with you in the fact of it's too early to tell, but you also never know. It's more what my point was. You also never know how good they could be at the end of the year, right?
Yeah, and my question to you, James, this is the question that I asked yesterday, and I kind of alluded to it earlier. Does anybody on the national scene at the end of the year, or is anybody really going to care that they beat Old Dominion?
No, because they won, obviously. Like, if they would have lost, obviously they would have cared more, right? But, like, since they won, it's not really going to be like, oh, they
Nobody
won.
cares.
Yeah.
Even if Old Dominion runs the table and wins the Sun Belt, like they'll be 11-1 and they'll maybe get into the playoff.
Well, especially if Indiana is a playoff team, they're not going to look at it as like, oh, they beat them. They might just say, oh, they beat another playoff team, but like they're not.
They're going to be.
If ODU makes the playoff team,
they're going to be at least 7 or 8 better wins on the schedule for Indiana at that point.
No, for sure. But when you come down to you base off resume, depending on if they lose or not, and if ODU did make the playoffs and somebody else beat a team that did make the playoffs, that's a group of 4 that might come down to it, but I don't think it would.
Sure. Yeah.
But no, it'd be interesting to see, and I hope we just come out ready to play. Obviously it's a team that obviously know what they can do against. But like you said, they were down a lot of corners and a lot of pillars were hurt for Illinois, so that also attributes to the whole situation for Indiana putting up so many points, I feel like, without them having like 7 DBs, right? But it'll be interesting to see, and I just hope they're ready to play, right? Come out ready to play, and I hope the fans there can help us, a little bit. How it can be out there. So.
I'll be shocked if Iowa comes out of the gate slow. Energy-wise, Don, we saw Iowa take some shots early against Rutgers. That was good to see. That was something that I had kind of called them out on. I didn't think they would do that on the road in a Big Ten opener. They were aggressive. We'll see how aggressive they are against Indiana. They got to control the field, because Indiana, that's one thing we haven't talked about. Indiana dominated field position against the Illini. So that's a storyline as well. But James, I'll be shocked if Iowa isn't locked and loaded. I don't know how you could possibly not be for this one.
Yeah, for sure. But I'll talk to you guys later. Let you get to other calls, and we'll see how it goes.
Thanks, James.
I flashed back, Corey, on that Ohio State game back in 2017 one thing when you're going in, we're not going to play a conservative game and beat Ohio State. And you might recall, I think Ohio State was surprised because we came out swinging. And a lot of those plays paid off for us. And the next thing you knew, Ohio State suffered one of their most embarrassing losses in quite a while.
Folks, we're going to talk more about analytics, the key stats to follow heading into this game, and see if we can push out some degree of a prediction from the guy for what some people identify as Burt Reynolds on my right. Don, you're younger than Burt. How old is Burt? Is he dead now? I hate to say that. I shouldn't ask that question.
He is dead.
Poor
It
Burt.
bothers me that people say I remind them of Burt Reynolds because he's passed away. I'd like to believe I don't know like I have one foot in the grave.
Yeah. Well, the reason I asked the question, so he would be if you were alive. You want to guess how old he would be if you were alive today, Don?
Well, I guess you can say I'm a young Burt Reynolds. How's that? I'm guessing 80.
89 if you were alive.
89. Which he's almost got me by a full generation. I'm only 74.
Yeah. Hey, he could be your dad. He could be your dad, Don. How about that?
Yeah. But he's not, because I know my dad.
Thanks for letting us know. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more with myself and Coach Don Patterson. You're watching Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Straight from the man cave, Kinnick under the kitchen. Randy Engel, a longtime supporter of the Hawkeyes and from the Hawkeye of the Storm, has created so much licensed, authentic, original Hawkeye artwork featuring so many of your favorite Hawkeyes. From Brad Banks to Reese Vanderzee, from Chuck Long to Caleb Johnson to Spencer Lee, and the list goes on and on. Be sure you check out the Under the Kitchen art stand each year at Fry Fest. Visit Under the Kitchen on Facebook and check out the entire selection of signed and unsigned prints available at underthekitchen.square.site. That's underthekitchen.square.site. Check out Under the Kitchen today and get your authentic, original Hawkeye print. Let me introduce you to one of the proud supporters of From the Hawkeye of the Storm, Iowa floor covering down in Bondurant. Now, for the last year and a half, you've heard me talk about this great company in the heart of central Iowa. They've got their tough core, click together, 4.5 millimeter waterproof vinyl flooring, great for you DIYers out there. But even if you're just a contractor or you need a different type of flooring, they've got you covered, whether it be tile showers, carpet. Give Iowa Floor Covering a chance to serve you better and serve your flooring needs. Visit them online at iowafloorcovering.com. That's iowafloorcovering.com, or you can give them a call at 515-379-7000. That's 515-379-7000. Thank you to Iowa Floor Covering in Bondurant. Wanted to make a quick correction. We're updating the ad there because a number change for Iowa Floor Covering. So you see the new number across the bottom of your screen. To contact the great guys down at IFC, it's 515-207-0228. Again, 515-207-0228. Their website remains iowafloorcovering.com. We appreciate the fine folks down at IFC in Bondurant. All right, I'm back here with Coach Don Patterson. We're talking Iowa, Indiana, which will kick over on the Peacock at 2:30 p.m. Central Time on Saturday. Don, do you have Peacock year-round?
I do.
Is it a burden to have to pay for that?
I don't think it really costs that much. I can't recall what it cost, but we've become big WNBA fans. And of course, sometimes you won't be able to catch the games unless you have access to that WNBA service, whatever that's called, and or Peacock. And we've picked up games on both of them.
Yeah, I have no issue with it being on Peacock. And if some people are on a tight budget, I get that. I mean, all of us at times are, we're trying to watch what we're spending. No question about it. But it is not that expensive when you compare it to what it costs just to have YouTube TV or whatever. And you get a lot with it. I mean, there is a lot of programming there, Don, some great shows. And, you get sports. You also get basketball. So, anyways, I'm not trying to be an NBC Peacock advocate. But there are a couple of good games you can watch on the Peacock this weekend, Don. Also, Penn State, Oregon will be on NBC/Peacock in the evening. Care to share any thoughts? I mean, it's a huge game, top 10 matchup in this conference. I'm sure you've studied it to some extent. Do you have any predictions or thoughts on the Nittany Lions and the Oregon Ducks?
Well, as you know, Corey, Penn State, based on really, really lofty preseason predictions, they're rolling along unbeaten, but the wins have not been as impressive as people expected.
Right.
Haven't earned a lot of style points, I guess you could say. Having said that, you might think that Oregon's going to be able to go in there and beat them. But I put a lot of stock in the fact that it's a whiteout. It's a great home field advantage. I think it's only a toss-up game. It can go either way.
And just for the record, the reason why Iowa, Indiana is on Peacock is because it's not a week-by-week deal, right? So the Big Ten has, a partnership, a contract with NBC, Fox, and CBS. So obviously Fox includes FS1, BTN. But the way that works, it basically works as a draft. And at the beginning of the year, each network gets to draft their games. So it's not a week-by-week basis. It's on a season basis. So you'd have to go back and figure out, Fox, number one, is obviously going to take Ohio State and Michigan. So that's why that game's always going to be big noon kickoff on Fox, as long as Fox gets first pick and so forth. I'm sure Oregon, Penn State was pretty high on NBC's list. That'd be my guess. And then Iowa, Indiana was not as high. It's not a week-by-week thing. So just a note there. And Rough Rider Returns says UCLA at Northwestern, Big Ten game of the week, spelled W-E-A-K. So I like that comment. All right, let's go back to our live chat. Murph wants to know, are the Hoosiers that good, or is Illinois just overrated? Don, I'd say, simply put, it's a combination of both. You can't convince me at this point that Indiana's number 9 in the country. I didn't think they were number 9 in the country heading into the game. They hadn't beat anybody with the exception being Duke on the road, and I think Duke is mediocre at best. That's why I keep saying it's too early. These rankings are too premature. Would you agree with me that it's kind of a combination of both? Indiana's probably not quite as good as they showed Saturday, but Illinois is definitely not as bad.
Well, let's face it, right now, even we've only played 7 conference games. So you're talking about the first 3 out of 4 games invariably are non-conference. And maybe people play one tough opponent like we do with Iowa State. But you can bet the other 2 are supposed to be one-sided. That's true for all kinds of schools. So it is hard to tell how good anyone is just based on those first few games.
Absolutely. And let's see here. I see Brett Mormon in the chat says, good week to pull out a special teams trick or fake, if you ask me. Been calling those for a while. If they're there and they work, they get the right look. LeVar swears up and down, they'll run it. So is it possible that we see a fake somewhere on the field for Iowa this week? That would be phenomenal. But again, it has to be at the right time. Kirk's got to sign off on that, right, Don? Is it fair? We've been talking about play calling and how Kirk's not micromanaging the offense. Right. But is it fair to say that a fake field goal or fake punt has to be signed off by the head coach?
He's going to make that call, no one else.
Okay, but LeVar is probably talking to him in the headset saying, Coach, I like the look. Let's go, right?
Yeah, there's going to be conversation even in advance of that. Certainly they're going to go on the field with the idea that it may be there. Now, maybe it wouldn't even be necessary to signal from the sideline. Maybe the unit already is aware if we get the look we want, we're not going to have any kind of word that tells us we're not going to do it. In other words, they might call it coming off the bench, and the only way they're not going to run it is if they cancel it on the field. That's a possibility.
And Michelle, she says, I'd like to watch the game. It's on Peacock. I think you can get a free trial, or get it for one.
Here's another good option, Corey. Assuming you're in any kind of urban area, I'd go to the nearest sports bar. If it's in the state of Iowa, I bet it's going to be on TV.
Indiana's coach says that their safeties are weak. So that's been a talk a little bit, maybe some vulnerability on the back end of that Indiana defense. Don, what have you seen as far as weaknesses for the Hoosiers? And is that where that kind of goes along well with the question here from Paul? He wants to know from you specifically, Coach, where is Indiana weak?
Okay. Well, first off, let's talk about the free safety. His name is Lewis Moore. And today, as I understand it, the judge ruled in his favor He will be allowed to play out the rest of the season. He's a very, very good free safety. Here's the part that annoys me a little bit. His eligibility clock started in 2019. Now think about that for a minute. He was 3 years at Navarra Junior College in Texas, which happens to be in Corsicana, Texas, which happens to be where I was born, about probably a mile from the stadium that Navarra plays in. So I know all about Navarra. 3 years there, and then 2 years at Indiana, and then 1 year off to Ole Miss, and now back in Indiana. This is the 7th year on his clock. I'm sure there's some injuries in there. There's a COVID year in there too. The bottom line, he's going to be celebrating his 25th birthday in January. It just seems a little odd. The guy's going to be playing in the 7th year after he became a college player.
Well, Caden Weegen's on the verge of that, Don. You do realize that, right? He could come back.
Is this 7th year?
He couldn't. He's talked about next year he could come back for a 7th year.
So this is his 6th year on his clock.
I believe this is number 6.
Well, I'm not going to be offended if he leaves, because otherwise the wife and kids might be upset with him. Since he's an older man.
Yeah. He's one of the few that haven't gotten married, Don. That's the thing to do.
I shouldn't joke about that, because he might take it to heart and go out and get engaged this weekend. I'm sorry, Finn, you might want to hold off on that.
And James A. So this is that article, by the way, from thehoosier.com. That's on 3's Hoosier site. Judge rules Indiana safety Lewis Moore is eligible for the rest of the 25 season. He will remain on the field after a Texas court sided with him in his fight against the NCAA, granting an injunction that secures his eligibility. He was playing under a temporary restraining order while his lawsuit moved forward. So it was possible that they weren't going to get him after today. But instead, an injunction was granted. He is a 6th-year senior who will get an extra year of eligibility. Did you say 6th year or 7th year, Don?
This is his 7th year. He played football in the fall of 19.
Well, this says it's a 6-year senior.
I read in a different place. They mentioned it by years. He spent 3 years at Navarro, and they listed 2 years at Indiana, and then off to Ole Miss for a year, and now back in Indiana. 3 + 4 is 7.
Okay. Well, see what CBS has to say. Are they going to list that as it's not telling us how many years. This says 6 as well, Don, but
this much I know. He'll turn 25 in January. Yeah. And if he was 18 as a high school senior, then that means he played in his first fall at the age of 18. Actually, he didn't turn 19 until January. So he was 18 in year 1. That means he'd be 24 in 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. That's 7.
All right, Keaton. Now we got the Indiana folks here. You guys are idiots. Indiana will work Iowa. Sorry. That was my inner Homer voice. Not mocking anybody. That was my inner Homer voice. Better players all around. Hawks will need the crowd to keep it close. So there you go. See, he threw out that end. That way, if it's close, he can protect his rear end, Don.
Yeah. Well, I'll just go keeping this. We've beaten better teams than Indiana in Kinnick Stadium.
Much better teams than
any
Indiana.
Number of them.
Respect to Indiana. With all due respect to Indiana. That's my point with all of this. They've also lost to teams that are worse than Indiana. I mean, I remember them losing to Purdue in 2021, Don.
And that's the nature of football.
That is the nature of football. Absolutely. Doc P brings up the punter, how he must earn his scholarship. Don, they've punted less, but I made the comment yesterday that it feels like Reese Dakin has not been quite as sharp so far through 4 games. Have you seen the same thing?
I think you're right. He's had a couple of balls that he very definitely mishit. You remember into the win against Iowa State, there was a short punt early in the game.
Yeah.
I think first possession. So he hadn't been quite as consistent as he wants to be, I'm sure. We recognize he's a really talented guy. No better time to pull out your A game than this Saturday.
Doug brings up how we need to score. Iowa needs to score on the opening drive. Hates taking the ball on the opening kick, but been doing it for 20 years.
That's not true. Doug, I'm sorry. In general, we've deferred.
There was a period of time several years back, Don, that Kirk was taking the ball regularly, but for a while they've been deferring.
Yeah. I hope Doug's aware that Kirk's taken the ball the last 2 or 3 times.
He has taken the ball yes, he has taken the ball.
3 at least, right? He did at Iowa State. He did for UMass, and he did last Friday night.
Brett wants to know if Iowa should take the ball this week.
That's not an easy call. I think it relates a little bit to the wind. It relates a little bit to, incidentally, the last I heard, it was southwesterly wind at 5 to 15 miles an hour. Obviously, there's a big difference between 5 and 15. So there will be a wind at kickoff that's it's going to be easy to defend the south goal. I'll say it that way. If, in fact, the wind's out of the southwest.
It appears.
So not an easy decision.
According to the forecast, Don, it appears that Saturday is going to be relatively light as it relates to winds.
Good.
Can you convert 9 kilometers per hour to miles per hour? Why is it giving me kilometers per hour?
I wouldn't even want to try. I refuse to. I know what a kilometer is because I used to be I was commissioned field artillery in the Army, and I was a forward observer as a second lieutenant. And you do have an idea of what a click is. A click, incidentally, is 1 kilometer.
Yeah, this
so
just says.
If you're an artillery fire, you better have an idea of what 100 meters looks like.
The Weather Channel says 5 to 10 mile per hour winds, west-southwest.
So the wind will not have a whole lot to do with the outcome of the game.
Right. All right. Let's see. Next question here from, well, I guess a comment here from Gary that I thought I chuckled at this. Got a feeling about this game. Homecoming Hawkeyes will show Indiana Hoosiers daddy on Saturday. I could play on words. Okay. VMS BIGOT. Is the visitors' locker room still pink? Absolutely.
Yes, it is. We put on an extra coat of pink just for Indiana.
We got another Indiana fan here. Classy profile picture. You can't go off schedule. Go by your eye test. Do you not have eyes to see? Well, you must be missing a comma and a punctuation on some level of punctuation on your keyboard, because that's the most poorly structured sentence I think I've ever seen. But appreciate you being here.
Rudy the Boxer, I believe you've taken one too many punches.
James H. says, I have a question for Coach that does not pertain to IU. He'd like to hear your all-time starting D-line. I'm assuming he's talking Hawkeye history or maybe just your coaching history. How many of those would be from Iowa versus Western Illinois?
Well, let's talk Hawkeye football.
Okay.
One for sure would be a guy by the name of Mark Moritz. From Hardyville, Wisconsin. He's really known more probably as an offensive lineman on the world champion Chicago Bears. But he was a D lineman for us, and I give Mike Ditka a lot of credit. I don't recall when Mark was drafted, but before they drafted him, they had a conversation with him, and Ditka was just being honest. He said, Mark, I don't know that you're going to be good enough to make our team as a D lineman, but if we draft you, we just want to know we're not going to draft you unless you are okay with the idea of transitioning to offense. And I believe the answer from Mark was, Coach, if you draft me, I'll be honored to play for you wherever you put me. And the rest of that story is history, because Mark became a very, very good offensive lineman. He's one of the best defensive linemen that Iowa has ever had. Other ones I would pick, Jared DeVries comes to mind. He was an awfully good one from back in the day. And if you want to go back to year one, John Hardy was a really, really good player that played a lot of years with the 49ers. Those are all good guys to consider.
Yeah, I saw the comment here from, let's see if I can get it up here. So Hardy's name was brought up, Don, and you're going to have to inform me a little bit more. Spaceport 74. He says, I still remember the James Hardy years. That receiver from Indiana absolutely terrorized Iowa for a couple of years. R.I.P. Hardy was an amazing college receiver. We couldn't stop him. So this is a different James Hardy?
Yes.
Wow. That's a different. Wow. That's weird that both you're saying there was an Iowa defensive lineman named James Hardy and then an Indiana receiver.
John Hardy.
John.
And he was HARTY.
Got it. Okay, can you tell us a little bit about, do you remember the James Hardy that Space Boy's talking about that played for Indiana?
I don't. I remember years ago when Corso was playing, they had a guy, you've heard me make this comment. I remember Coach Fry, before the very first game that we coached at Iowa, he reminded Bill Brazier, he said, Bill, don't forget, I promise you Corso's going to throw it deep half a dozen times. I don't remember if it was game one, but in the early years, certainly in the 80s, they had a receiver by the name of Dwayne Gunn. A good Indiana fan still remembers Dwayne Gunn because they would throw the ball deep half a dozen times, probably in his direction, most of those. And I don't care who they were playing. Typically, he got a couple of them. And so maybe they threw deep 6 times. Maybe they only hit on 2, but those 2 passes were worth 100 yards. So that's 2 yards per attempt. That's a good average. You hit on 2 out of 6, that's a good argument to throw deep at least 6 times because it's a nice way to get a couple of touchdowns or huge gainers.
Greg says, Cignetti is an impressive coach and love your channel. Thank you, Greg. I don't know if Greg is a Hawkeye fan or a Big Ten fan or Indiana fan, but we appreciate the kind words. And I have a lot of respect for what Curt Cignetti's done there. Kirk does too. Kirk did acknowledge the obvious. It's easier to do it now than it would have been in 1999, given the fact that you have the portal and NIL and all that stuff. But certainly kudos to him for doing it. Again, Rudy, you just learn punctuation, please. It would help us all, and it will help you a lot in life. Takun says, night game. Go ahead, Don. Do you have a sly remark to make?
I'm going to give Rudy advice. Rudy, stay out of the ring. How about Rudy the Xboxer?
The Xbox. Okay. Takun says, night game, border rivalry, ranked matchup. It's all a recipe for a great game, which is what Indiana had. Unlikely it happens again, especially for the first road game of the year, but they're good. Okay, I see what you're saying. Absolutely. And then Hawkeye Howard wants you to compare, give us an idea, because Indiana runs some RPO. Give us an idea for differences between these two offenses, Don. How are they preparing for each other, and how are they similar?
Which 2 offenses are you talking about now? Indiana and Rutgers?
Indiana's offense and Iowa's offense, excuse me.
Oh, and Iowa's offense. Well, we don't run as many IPOs as Indiana's run, I think. RPOs. So I think we probably spent more time on RPOs this week than we normally would because that's certainly part of the pass offense. I think it's one thing that helps us, though. Remember I talked about throwing those slants, and all Illinois typically has 1 high safety. You're going to see more 2 high safeties out of us, I do believe. And it's going to be, well, one thing we did learn, that's how the Illinois player got eliminated from the game. That was this RPO slant. It was a huge hit. And the only thing wrong with that hit, I would argue that he really did contact him a lot with his shoulder. They ended up ruling that the helmet was a slightly bigger effect maybe than the shoulder, and hence he was tossed from the game. But our guys are going to be a little less likely to make that helmet-to-helmet hit because it'll be emphasized. We don't want to lose you, Xavier, but you and I both know Xavier packs a punch. And if he's able to get there shortly after the ball, there's going to be a player on the ground that's going to have a hard time getting up. And he's not going to be wearing our number. He's going to be wearing Indiana's number. So that's the thing they recognize. If they're going to throw those slants, you better be prepared to take a hit because you're very likely to be hit. And that's just the nature of the game. And maybe the receivers are good enough to handle it, but nobody enjoys a defender showing up 200ths of a second after the ball because it's not even easy to hang on to the ball if you have a contact shortly after the ball's touched.
T. Hink says that Corey needs the facial hair back. He needs it back.
Corey, I apologize. I saw you on the air sometime sooner than this, and I remember thinking, hey, that shave look looks good on Corey. That's a pretty good look.
Well, I appreciate that, Don. I couldn't believe it. I went back and looked. Somebody in the chat said, oh, it's been since January 2024. And I'm thinking, first of all, how do you know that? That's kind of strange. And second off, that's longer than I thought. But time goes by, Don, when you're having fun. So Doc P says, remember when Tim Dwight beat Indiana 63-0?
Tim would say you had a lot of help from a lot of other Hawkeyes.
63-0. I believe Iowa beat an Illinois team 63-0 a few years back. James H. says, I think Corey should have shaved his head. Not happening. unless I break out with a illness, that's not happening. So, anyways, and Hawkeye Howard says he wants some Kinnick magic this Saturday. Let's go to our next caller. We got Doug. Doug, welcome to the show. It's good to see you.
Need a shave.
What's up, Doug?
Not much. I really wanted to tell Corey, I really enjoyed you on Mark Roger yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, you're. At first, I didn't like those two Indiana guys, and it's my boy Corey by himself. I'm like, but you're holding your own there.
Well, it seemed like I rubbed some people the wrong way. I just, yeah, like the comment in the chat that I read earlier. Yeah, I frankly, I am. I'm already tired of the Homer nonsense. And I got that like it was nothing personal with those two guys. I mean, they seem like nice guys, but they are homers.
Yep.
And I think they would admit it. Like, they are homers.
Yeah.
And there's some people that cover Iowa that are in the media that I would say are homers. It just is what it is. But I just am tired of this idea. Like, some of these people are acting like this is some powerhouse program. And by the way, it was just a week ago, we talked on the Big Ten show, and one of the Indiana guys made a comment that Indiana's program is in a better position right now than Iowa's. And that was before the Illinois game. And I'm like, well, we don't know that yet, because Iowa had 3 years under Ferentz that if the playoff had been expanded then, Iowa would have had 3 college football playoff appearances. So one playoff appearance under Signetti on a weak schedule does not convince me of that yet. So yes, I want Iowa to go out there and blast the Hoosiers. And I don't have anything against the Indiana fan base, but this week has been an eye-opener. It's amazing the people that come out from the woodshed, as bandwagons when it's convenient. But go ahead, Doug.
No, and that's what was getting to me is, they're acting like they are Ohio State and Penn State. And, hey, you had one, again, we are what we are, and we know who we are. They might come into Kinnick and whoop our butt, but
they might.
But they have to do that.
And that will be really impressive if they do. And I'm going to give them kudos just like I did every time. And I'll get mocked and I'll get ripped and I'll get destroyed. That's fine. But the reality is, like you just said, we've outlined. How many reasons have we outlined? How many reasons have we outlined as to why this might not be as dominant of a performance Saturday by the Hoosiers as some people are expecting? There's a number of reasons.
Yeah, and I think that's what was getting to me with those guys. And what's their next game? It's against Oregon next week. Who they play next week?
I'd have to look that up. Don, do you know?
Because I was almost like thinking, are they taking this as a trap game? Like,
yeah, they play real quick. They play Oregon, but they get a bye week after this.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's just one of those things. I had a question first for Don. And I've asked this before, and I guess my kickoff question was kind of dumb. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't. I'm not a football guy. I don't know football strategy.
No, I get real quick, Doug, just to throw a bone your way. You are right. And Don, maybe this was before, maybe time has flown by. Maybe this was when you were still coaching quarterbacks out east. But there was a good period of time, a good stretch where Kirk took the ball. It felt like no matter what. But then that switched. I don't know what year. It seemed like more often than not they started deferring.
And you already answered that. I don't know which one's better. You can go over it again if you want.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't want to give too much information out because it relates to the strategy of the game. Mm-hmm. I'll just say this. In recent years, Kirk has deferred primarily because the strength of our football team in general has been defense.
Yes.
And the thought process, of course, is we'll defer, they'll take the ball, we'll stop them, maybe even on 3 downs, and then they'll have to punt into the wind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll have a short field, and now we'll be able to win the first quarter. He's generally thought that way, except this year, you might even argue that the offense certainly compares more favorably to the defense than it has in recent years. And that's just one reason to consider taking the ball. I think it is safe to say the team that scores the first touchdown, I don't have the percentage in front of me, but it's a good high percentage of winning the game. And obviously, the team that receives the opening kickoff has the best chance to score first, if only because the other offense hasn't been out there yet.
And you'd agree, no matter what he does in those first couple series, we have to start fast. I don't think Indiana's played behind this year, so that might be a benefit. I'm not saying we can break them in the first quarter. If they're as good as they think they are, we're not going to break them no matter what. This will be a 4-quarter game. But we need to take it to them right away. No slow starts.
Correct. You don't want to play from behind. I'll tell you one reason you don't want to play from behind. You don't want to do anything to dampen the enthusiasm of your fans. Let's face it.
Yes.
One reason we have a chance to win this game is not because of those guys on the sidelines dressed in black and gold. It's because of those 70,000 that are going to be wearing black and gold in the seats. Because if Indiana doesn't think it's loud in Kinnick, then they simply haven't been in Kinnick yet. Now, it'll be loud as long as the game's in doubt, that's for sure. Let me talk about a game. Years ago, we played Michigan State. It was an early kick. And we got off to a horrible start in Kinnick. And I do remember this. The last play of the first quarter was our first down. Meanwhile, Michigan State had 17 points. It was 17-zip, and we heard some boos, and we deserved to be booed because we got off to a horrible start. Here's the rest of the story. Final score, Iowa 37, Michigan State 30. And I made the mistake, I guess you could say, of saying after the game, thank God our players are mentally tougher than our fans. Because the fans had given up, but the players hadn't.
Well,
and I did say, Don, you probably shouldn't have said that because it may come back to bite us a little bit, but I'm just being honest.
Well, our players are definitely tougher than me. So,
well, my point of being the story up, Doug, I'm telling our fans right now, you got to be mentally tough on Saturday also. If we get off to a rocky start, for God's sakes, don't think we don't need your help even more. So we're requesting you, give us the best fan support we can possibly have. That's what these guys deserve.
Okay, I have a defensive back question, and it's for Corey to answer maybe the statistical part of it, and then you to answer how we can create more. How many interceptions have we gotten this year? It doesn't seem like many, and how can we get more interceptions? Yeah, there's my question even.
Corey, how many picks have we got? Just one, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, one. I mean,
that's not a lot.
I would say from my perspective, Don, you're the coach. From my perspective, sometimes turnovers are a result to some extent of risk-taking, although Iowa traditionally doesn't. Iowa corners, Don, you've talked about some Iowa corners that were uber aggressive that maybe people didn't make them pay as much as maybe you'd expect. We saw Riley Moss be uber aggressive with some pick sixes and, even Matt Hankins.
Jackson.
It seemed like, Josh Jackson. It seemed like teams didn't hit him with as many double cuts as you would expect.
Desmond King, right?
For a guy, for someone that is, these guys obviously are well trained by Phil Parker. And so, but when you're really aggressive, you have a chance at maybe giving up a big play or making a big play. So that's what I would say. If you want to create more turnovers, Doug, start sending more pressure. But the problem is if you start sending more pressure, more bad things are going to happen. And Phil is going to be very orchestrated with when he sends pressure. And that's a good question for you, Don. Do you think maybe Phil sends a little bit more pressure early, extra guys since they struggled to get home with a 4-man front first quarter against Rutgers this past Friday, and Indiana's front decisively better, at least we believe it to be decisively better than Rutgers is?
It wouldn't surprise me if we had more line games in the first half than what we had last week. Yes, I think that's true. Here's the bottom line, and we talked about it last week with Kelly Manis. I made a note to myself during the game. I said, we've got to make Rutgers quarterback uncomfortable. We're not getting to him. We got to get to him. You saw, Doug, as the game played out, we used line stunts in the second half. We had better coverage, some of which was 2-man, 500-man with 2 safeties in behind in passing situations. And we got home a few times. We had 3 sacks, as I recall. Is that right? I believe that's right. Not to mention the near sack that became an interception. And on top of that, we hit that quarterback a few times when he did get the ball off. And a funny thing happened, Doug, in that second half. He wasn't quite as accurate as he was in the first half. Yep. I think I know why. He had a helmet or two in his chest a few times. That makes a difference.
Let's get some pressure on. My last question is about the cash position. Do we still play the cash position? Or are we in that 4-3? And who is that cash player, and how would you evaluate him so far? I guess both of you can answer that question if you want.
Correct me if I'm wrong. That's Lutmer, right?
It's Lutmer, and people were yelling at me, telling me I was wrong in August for saying that it was Lutmer. Everybody's like, it's got to be Cohen. It's got to be Cohen. And I'm like, well, everything I've heard is Zach Lutmer, and it has been Zach Lutmer since week 1 against Albany, and I think he's been fine. I mean, I haven't noticed anything. Have you noticed anything on tape, Don, about Zach? They would indicate.
I think he's competed. I think did they beat him one time with a soft fade? I can't remember.
He was just
had pretty good coverage. It was just simply a well-executed play on their part.
It's a very good route.
I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. It
was
was.
I can't remember.
It was a very good route from the receiver, and Zach's got some speed, but so does that receiver because Zach had a hard time catching up to him. And so, yeah. I mean, I think creating more turnovers is certainly something that's got to be emphasized, but you have to do so. You can't get crazy, right, Don? You can't get in your own head about got to figure out a way to get the ball out, because I think Bielema may have alluded to that this past week after the game that, yeah, they were kind of trying to start stripping at the ball, and then that hurt their ability to tackle.
Right.
And that can happen, too, if you get a little desperate.
Yeah, here's the history of the two teams based on a year ago. I think you're aware, Corey, because I mentioned it before. In Big Ten play, the two teams tied for the top in turnover margin were Iowa and Indiana. We were both plus 10. So history says it's probably going to be a push. Last week, as I recall, I believe Indiana was only plus 1. Is that right? I think that's right.
That's right.
I know they won on turnovers too, but I'm pretty sure it was plus 1.
It was plus 1. Yep. Brett, thank you for the super chat. And he adds, thanks for what you and Don do for us. Absolutely. He's predicting Iowa 27, Indiana 24. So thank you for that, Brett. James H., Coach, if you coach for the Hoosiers, how do you keep them from overlooking Iowa and looking forward to Oregon? The bye week helps that, but go ahead, Don, if you have a thought on that.
Well, you have to educate them as to how many teams. You've heard the expression, Kinnick is the place where top 10 teams come to die. There's been somebody make that comment. An Indiana fan would counter by saying, well, I know for a fact Iowa's lost. The last 10 times they've lined up against the right team, they've lost.
True.
Yeah, but there's a little caveat to that. I think more than half of those have been road games. And if they were played here in Kinnick, I think they've been, in general, pretty close games. So it's not easy if you want to beat Iowa by 3 touchdowns in Kinnick, good luck. It's going to be hard to do because very few people have done it.
Travis, thank you for being here. Indiana fan says, just peeking in as a Hoosier and IU fan, Iowa is one of the most respected programs in the country. However, it would be a big surprise if they were closer than 3 touchdowns. This is exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm not ripping on Travis, Don. But
Travis, I would invite you to contact all your Iowa friends and tell them you're giving 3 touchdowns and bet them $5,000. I'm pretty sure a lot of Iowa fans would take you up on that bet.
And I'm not being disrespectful to Don. And I don't think he doesn't mean any disrespect to us. He's legitimately believing that Indiana will come to Iowa City and win by 3 touchdowns. And if they do, kudos to them. But, right. I mean, man, that would be too exciting.
Let me give Travis a little bit of a dose of reality. Let me take you back to the playoff game against Notre Dame. Travis, you probably know the score of that game, 27-17. But here's the dirty little secret. With 5 minutes left, it was 27-3.
Yeah.
He scored 14 points in the last 5 minutes of the game. So don't talk to me about threatening to beat Notre Dame because that game wasn't even close.
You mean beating Iowa, right? Or no, did he say something about Notre Dame?
No, I'm just saying, I'm sure a lot of Indiana fans would tell you that they really gave Notre Dame trouble and lost by 10. That wasn't true. It was 27-3 with 5 minutes left.
Amanda, thank you for being a premium member. Same with James. Same with Doug. I'm sure I missed a couple in there. Thank you for being premium members, folks, here on YouTube. Yes, hit the like button, whether you're a premium member or not. That is free. A small gesture just to help the show out. And Travis adds, Old Dominion will win 11 games. They won their second game by nearly 50 points and then dog walked the Hokies on the road. Okay, they won their second game by 50 points. Don, you want to guess who they played?
Second game, no.
They played North Carolina Central. So again, why are we talking about it? Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Not being disrespectful to you, but nobody cares.
I wasn't sure North Carolina Central played football.
What's it? They're an HBCU, Don. Can I just say this? This is what surprised me. Because, I mean, I won't be shocked if Old Dominion wins 10 games. They did beat an ACC team, but it doesn't mean it's some great win. But how about this? This is the preseason poll out of the Sun Belt, Don, and they do this by division. Look at Old Dominion. They were picked to finish 5th in a 7-team East Division. That's incredible.
Well, that would suggest they're not going to win 11 games.
Well, it might also suggest that these pollsters were just wrong. That's possible, too. But
Yeah.
I just bring it up because it does sort of surprise me that I mean, I don't know when has Old Dominion ever been good? They've been bowl games, but man, everybody's just reading into that. They love that Virginia Tech win. They love that Virginia Tech win. So anyways, focus on the Illinois game, folks. That's what was impressive. So anyways, Murph says, do you think all these coaching firings have anything to do with Indiana's immediate success under Cignetti? Don, do you think those are conversations happening with administrations across the country?
No, I don't think they have much to do with Indiana's success, simply because I don't think any of Indiana's opponents in recent weeks have gone through a coaching change shortly before they played Indiana. Virginia Tech after the game, but not before.
Erica's here in our chat. We don't see Erica much anymore. Erica's pretty much MIA anymore. So, Erica, good to have you here checking in on us. Thank you. Don says, Coach, would you agree that getting your hands up, if not getting to the quarterback, tip balls equal turnovers? Sure.
Absolutely.
That's what led to the one last week.
I will say this, too, talking about getting the ball out. No one saw Army versus North Texas except myself, and that's simply because I'm a proud Academy grad. But last weekend, and
we're real quick, and you coached at North Texas.
I did.
Yeah.
That's one reason I was watching too, is because I went to one school and coached at the other one. Here's my point. And they played at West Point. A pretty good home field advantage, because when teams come in there, they're all crazy about, they're looking at buildings that were built 150 years ago, and the Academy's been there since 1802. And let's face it, there are a lot of really impressive people that graduated from the place. But as a result of all that, they still got to play a football game on Saturday. But here's my point. North Texas did a great job of getting the ball out. And I'm not talking about intercepting passes. I'm talking about putting a fist on the football. Twice they had a hard hit on the ball, and the ball was out. I promise you that's been coached. And the only reason I bring it up, I hope that we spent some time practicing getting the ball out too, because it might not show up on Saturday, but maybe over the course of the season, we'll force more fumbles than what we've forced in the past.
James says, Coach and Corey, if you had to pick one running back to have on your team, who would it be? Freddie Russell or Sean Green?
I'd go for Sean Green, but I haven't seen those guys play all their games either. I know Fred Russell was a good back too.
How about Cedric Shaw or Tavian Banks?
I'd go for Tavian, I think, simply because Tavian, I think, is a little better coming out of the backfield as a receiver.
Okay. And Doug in the chat, reminding everybody, hit that like button. Yes, Commander Cody, thank you as well for being a premium member. Speaking of premium members, even if you're a premium member over on YouTube, please consider joining us as a premium member on Discord, because you get a different level of access on Discord. So we launched this here recently, and very easy to sign up. But Discord is basically just a way for you to interact and chat with us, myself, Kyle Spence, and more coming, more coverage over on Discord coming. Let me see. Where's the banner? There it is. Discord server, just $5 a month, or you can pay up front for $50 for an entire year. Think about that. Drop $50, donate that, and we'll eat the donation cost, the third-party cost through PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App. Label your donation Discord. Chat with myself, Kyle Spence, leading up to game day, on game day, after game day, all of it. Easy way to connect, support, have some fun, build your Hawkeye community. Again, use that one of those 3 donation links in our description, and we'll send you a link to join our Discord server. Be sure you label your donation Discord so we know. All right. Let's see here. I want to see if I'm missing anything else. Is Kasheen on Discord? I'm going to have to throw this her way. Might be the one. We're not going to get Don on Discord. I know I can't get Gary Close on Discord, but I might be able to get our one host under the age of 40 on Discord. No, Don, I'm
70.
Gary's not 70.
No, I know he's not.
Gary's getting closer, but no, Gary's not 70 yet.
60 something, I guess.
I think so. Yeah, I don't want to guess too high, or we'll never see Gary again. Chapman says, "When is my prediction coming out?" I'll probably have that out there tomorrow, so we'll get that out tomorrow. And drum roll, I guess, for that, because I've had some interesting response. And Josh, thank you for being here, even though you got here late. No big deal whatsoever. Kelvin says Ronnie Harmon, best running back ever, and Liddell Betts, very underrated. All right.
A lot of good ones, and two of the best. Corey, I do have a couple.
Go ahead.
I do have a couple of priorities if you want to talk about priorities for the game.
Yes, let's finish off with that, Don. Give me
one, obviously,
priorities for Iowa, Illinois,
it should be turnover margin, but I won't list it simply because it probably end up being a push. Probably both teams do a good job protecting the ball. If we can do two things, I think we'll be okay. One will surprise you, and one might. One, we absolutely need to outrush Indiana. That's critical. I think in general, we have a good chance to do that, in part because, as all of our listeners know, right now there's no better offensive line in the country, according to Pro Football Focus. Now, that's a tall. I wouldn't put too much stock in that. You know, I've always wondered aloud how reliable Pro Football Focus is. But for what it's worth, as a lot of our listeners know, our offensive line's graded out really, really well.
And they've got, did you see just to delve into that further, it's not even close. They've got Iowa as the top offensive line, and it's not even a close second.
And that's absurd, frankly, because they're
Trevor Lauk as the number one left tackle graded so far in the country. Bo Stevens is the number one left guard so far graded in the country. Logan Jones, number one center in the country. Cade Pieper, number one right guard. And Jennings Dunker, number two right tackle. I don't know how to react to that, Don. I had to go look up, like, what is Pro Football Focus? How do they grade players? And basically what I read, and you can read over on Pro Football Focus's website, Don, I sent it to you last night as well.
I read some of it.
Basically, they have some analysts look at.
They don't say who they are, though, do they?
They don't say who they are, but there are some analysts that looks at every single snap. Apparently, that's a lot of football, Don. How do you do that?
I know. That's why the whole thing's absurd.
How do you do that across the country? They're watching every player for every team in the country.
Let me say this. I've been retired from coaching for a while. I haven't heard from Pro Football Focus. They haven't asked me to grade quarterbacks or receivers. And for that reason, if they haven't reached out to me, I wonder how reliable they are. Because I can certainly do it better than some of the people they're using.
But that's unbelievable, Don, if those numbers are any indicator. We'll
it's
see.
absurd to think one offensive line would be that much better than all the rest. Right? I think we'll agree with that.
What do you mean one offensive lineman would be better than all the rest?
No, our offensive line as a whole would be great enough, that much better than all other offensive lines.
Exactly. Every single one is, besides Dunker, who is second. I mean, that's just crazy. I don't understand how it almost makes it, it makes it almost less believable, right? To some extent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that and $1 will get you a Coke. Maybe. Can you buy a Coke for $1 nowadays?
It's in front of Walmart.
Okay.
Sure.
Getting back to priorities. Outrush Indiana. That's important. If we don't do it, I doubt that we'll win the game. Secondly, if we can do this, if we can do these two things, I think we'll win the game. It's pretty amazing that we might narrow it down to just a couple of things. And we've already established, if we're even on turnovers, obviously that doesn't have much impact on the game. But that second category I'm talking about, edge on defensive sacks. Edge on defensive sacks. Because what does that say? If we have an edge on defensive sacks, that suggests we've done a good job of making Mendoza uncomfortable.
Yep.
Right?
And just the short-term effect, you have drive killers. It's just going to kill drives.
That's correct. Not to mention, when a quarterback gets sacked or hit shortly after the ball comes out, an amazing thing happens. He all of a sudden starts losing accuracy on his throws because he's a little bit preoccupied with protecting himself. That's human nature, to want to protect yourself. So our problem with that, Indiana has forced a lot of sacks, right? Well, I went back and looked at those sacks, 7 sacks against Illinois. And I looked at them based on down and distance. Here's what I found. 2nd and long, 2 sacks. 3rd and medium, 3 sacks. 3rd and long, another 2 sacks. All 7 of them occurred when Illinois was behind the chains. So that's another part of solving that, is staying ahead of the chains, because you're not going to see those funky fronts and some unusual stunts in terms of pass rush unless it's an obvious passing situation.
So if Iowa outrushes Indiana, they outrush Indiana, and they beat them in sacks, which is a tall order because Indiana had 7 against Illinois, you're saying the Hawkeyes win?
I suspect those 2 things would do it. And I'm assuming we're not -3 on turnovers, because at that point we'll lose the game anyway.
Right. Real quick, just a quick question. I see the question. We'll take it from, let's see, is it Seth? Not Seth. It was Josh. Do you think the slow mesh could work versus Indiana?
Slow mesh is not going to win in too many football games. Slow mesh might help. Slow mesh might help us. But again, you keep basing offense on slow mesh.
Do you like the slow mesh?
It's got a place, absolutely.
Yeah.
But, I would hope, the RPOs that Indiana runs, I'll put it this way. I'm familiar with RPOs because we ran RPOs at UConn. And here's what I know about quarterbacks and RPOs. They like to throw the football. So if you really want to frustrate quarterbacks, call RPOs and then have your linebackers not be attacking the line of scrimmage. Because now they're going to get a little bit tired just handing the ball off. And they're making a few more yards maybe because the linebackers are not hammering the line of scrimmage. But, of course, we're eliminating those RPO throws by not committing those linebackers quite so quickly. So it'll be interesting to see how we approach the RPOs. If they're giving the ball a lot and they're making 3 yards at a time, that's okay. Because 3 times 3 is 9, and they still have to punt in general. So they're calling those RPOs because they want to throw RPOs. The play action, of course, gives you the right to throw them. If the linebacker bites, you throw it over it. If he doesn't bite, you reluctantly hand the ball off. And now they're running the ball into the line. And last time I checked, our defensive line's pretty darn good. Yep. So I think there's going to be minimal yards associated with giving the ball to the back on RPOs. They're calling them because they hope to throw them.
If Iowa gets down early, it spells trouble on a number of fronts, but one being then you force Iowa to throw. And Iowa, if they're going to be effective in the passing game, has to be balanced and have multiple threats.
And part of winning on sacks is being ahead of the chains. Right. We need to be ahead of the chains, efficient on first and second downs. First down, none of those sacks occurred on first down, not one. They were all 2nd and long, 3rd medium, 3rd and long, all 7 of them.
And David Bryan in the chat, just think of Discord as a very easy chat service to operate. So think of it like a message board of sorts where you'll be able to literally converse back and forth with other users, other Hawkeye fans, other premium members, as well as yours truly and other people involved here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. If you need help with it, let us know. We'll be happy to do that, but it's very easy to use. It's an app on your phone, or you can use it on your browser on your computer. Iowa, Indiana this Saturday, folks, 2:30 p.m. Central Time on Peacock. Hawkeyes will be down Jazz Patterson, Reese Vanderzee, Addison Estringa, of course, out for the season, but most other guys expected to be healthy, including Kamari Moulton, Seth Anderson. Go down the list. So we shall see what we shall see. I don't know about much of Indiana's injuries. I did note that they are down to their backup punter. He's played well, but they are down to their backup punter. So if Iowa gets into a punt battle, which they have a few times at Kinnick, I'd still give Iowa the advantage because I have a little bit more confidence in a seasoned guy in Reese Dakin than a backup punter for Indiana.
And one final request, Corey, to the fans. Please, please, please bring your A game also. And be mentally tough on Saturday. If we're struggling, that doesn't mean we don't need your support. If anything, we need it even more.
Iowa postgame with Coach John Patterson immediately following Iowa, Indiana. We'll take your calls, take your comments. Win or loss, we're right here after every game. Thank you for being with us tonight, folks, for the last hour and a half. You'll get my prediction tomorrow. We'll get live postgame coverage here Saturday following the Hawks and the Hoosiers. Have a great night.